Welcome to the Cyber Agony Aunt podcast series, brought to you by your very own cyber aunties, me, Amelia Hewitt.
And me, Rebecca Taylor. We're here to tackle the most pressing questions that arise throughout your cyber career with a selection of very special guests.
Think of us as your very own mentors, confidants, and cheerleaders, your agony aunts for surviving your career. Hello and welcome back to the Cyber Agony Aunt podcast.
Woo-woo! It's nice to be back again. And we have a lovely guest with us today. I'm so excited. So for this special episode, we've invited what we believe to be a true cyber influencer, a public speaker who has travelled the world talking to topics as a subject matter expert. And they include speeches on imposter syndrome, empowerment in cyber roles, and on the risks that come with the AI, artificial intelligence era. This person is a friend, an ally, an absolute inspiration, beautiful guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. My name is Yemurai. I'm a speaker. I talk about the imposter monster in the context of the AI era, the cyber skills gap, and non-linear careers as I pivoted a career from chemistry to cybersecurity. Alongside that, which I call my 9 to 5, which pays the bills. I work as a senior cybersecurity associate for a top US investment bank, and I specialize in an area known as web application firewall and distributed denial of service. And in addition to that, I create content, less of the material stuff. I am a lover of life, people, food, and travel. So if you want to have a good conversation with me, tell me where you travelled and talk to me all day about sushi and Japanese cuisine.
I am so happy to hear you say that because I'm going through a real sashimi phase at the moment.
Sashimi.
All the time, I just want to eat raw fish. And no one gets it. Rebecca doesn't get it. We have conversations about, we went out last week and I was like, I just really want sushi. And she won't touch it with a 10-foot bar.
No,
so.
I'm really sorry. I love you, but no. Oh, dear. So going on to the pod for today, I think we've all heard a lot about the skills gap and that there aren't enough capable people, that roles can't be filled, that talent is somehow missing. It's a problem, right? But what if the problem isn't people at all? In this episode, we're going to be unpacking what the skills gap really means, who it affects most, and how the way we hire, train and develop talent shapes not just careers, but resilience itself. Amelia.
Well articulated introduction.
Thank you so kindly.
So we know, because you touched on very briefly in your intro, that you've had a very interesting pathway to your current role and you've studied a real broad range of fantastic topics. So can you share more with us what your career journey looked like, please?
Yeah, so I had a squiggly career. I studied chemistry at the University of Liverpool. My intention of getting into chemistry was to potentially pursue postgraduate medicine, but I got to the end of my degree and I was like, absolutely no way, I'm not doing that. And so after graduation, I kind of suffered from postgraduate blues as to what did I want to do with my life, because I'd spent 3 years doing a degree that I had absolutely no interest in pursuing from a career perspective. And then something happened that kind of changed my life. So there's a lady called Yasmin. She tweeted she earned 6 figures in tech. I know salary is a taboo subject when we talk about technology, but that was what was like, oh my God, a black woman earning 6 figures in the tech industry. And the context of that was she was complaining that in comparison to her peers, she wasn't earning as much. And I was like, that's a problem that I want to have. I want to be complaining that I'm earning 6 figures and I'm not earning as much as my peers. So then that kind of sparked the curiosity of getting into technology. So I then participated in an upskilling initiative at the time being ran by, I can't remember what the organization was called, In 4.0, where they were providing free training in the cloud. So I took it because it was free and it was 12 weeks and fully remote. And then from that opportunity, I worked at a health tech startup. So I was able to leverage my academic background of chemistry and the new technical skills that I'd learned in the cloud to find ways that we could detect for coronavirus. So that's when I found out about the interdisciplinary nature of technology, that aside from the financial perspective and opportunity from it, the actual capabilities it could have to change industries and change people's lives. So as startup cultures go, they don't really last long. That was like a 4 or 5 month stint. And I was left jobless on the market again, stacking shelves in Sainsbury's. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do with my life? I'm not really sure what to do. So I attended like a recruitment event by a career support group that I was part of called Coding Black Females. They had a partnership with one of the UK retail banks, and the hiring managers were just talking about what they did. And I was kind of like, say protecting the bank from cyber attacks sounds really cool. A bot attacks, like I didn't necessarily know the technical aspect of it, but it just sounded really cool. So I just said, you know what, I've got a range of transferable skills that I can bring into the team, and I have nothing to lose by just applying, nothing to lose. And I had the cloud knowledge as well. So I said YOLO and hope for the best. I get a call 3 months later, and it's basically, oh, you've been selected for the cybersecurity engineering role. And I said, what? Like, can you send the job description again? And then, one thing led to another. I had the interview and was able to land a role within cybersecurity, in this case, more specifically, Akamai, WAF, and DDoS. So I guess my career journey has been a process of upskilling, taking on applying anyway, and hoping for the best, and someone taking a chance on me. And obviously they wouldn't admit that, oh, like, you're a chance, but like I had a chemistry degree, only spent like 4 months in a health tech startup, like, and I didn't really understand cybersecurity like that, but transferable skills and passion, and just from that opportunity alone is what's basically changed my life, really.
How amazing is that? And I love the fact you describe it as wiggly.
Yeah.
And it resonates. The first thing that really resonated with me was sort of the post-grad blues.
Yes.
I did my English and creative writing degree and wandered out sort of into the wilderness like, who am I?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to be a teacher. I don't know where to work.
Yeah.
And it's hard, especially when you've spent all that time doing a degree, but you can't see how you then translate into the bigger world. That's tough. But also where you said that you almost like walked into cyber because it looked cool.
Yeah.
You're like, take a chance. Honey, exactly the same over here. I was obviously personal assistant back in the day. And again, wandered in like, hey, this looks really cool.
Yeah.
And I might be able to do something really cool here. But it was very much about being motivated and driven in my own ways, which feels like how you went with yours. It was about the motivation, wanting to make a difference and wanting to learn.
100%. And to add to that, I think it helped that I had a good interaction and connection with the hiring manager.
Yeah.
So part of me wanting to apply was, okay, this sounds cool, but the person who I'm speaking to, I feel like I could actually be a really good fit for the team. And they were able to recognize the transferable skills that I brought that I didn't necessarily realize for myself. And I just, with that kind of job, you learn on the job. It's not, obviously, theory matters from a networking perspective and general cyber, but there's a lot of people in that team who came from all walks of life, all backgrounds, HR, finance, sociology, and they all brought something to that cyber team that really helped empower the team and be successful in the way that it was.
Yeah, I think the thing that you said that really resonates is around the money element of technology, because I am very happy to admit this was not my dream job at all. I too wanted to be a doctor, and you know, I just, in the end, it wasn't for me. I ended up going into technology, and I was having a conversation this week with an apprentice at a client, and it was the first time that we'd met, and I'd said to her, you know, why did you want to get into this? And she was like, because you make a lot of money in cyber. And I was like, do you know what, babe? Fair enough. Like, that is completely fair enough, because there is so much taboo, I think, particularly for women to 100%. Talk about salaries. And actually, I don't think that you have to absolutely find your calling in your career. I think you can have so much richness in your hobbies and in your relationships and that sort of thing. And so I agree. I think it's completely fine. It was, for me, an attractive role because of the salary. I like nice things. I like to eat sushi. Like, that's not cheap. And so I think, you know, that's especially poignant to call out is that the route in doesn't have to be, well, I've always loved computers, because for the vast majority of us, that's actually not true.
Oh, yeah. That's so true.
Yeah, and I think to add to that as well, especially in a cost of living crisis, right? You have to prioritize your finances, like passion doesn't always pay.
Yeah.
So for me, like what I did sounded interesting, but it wasn't like I was in love with it. But the pay gave me the motivation to do well in the job. And I did like what I was doing, but it helped fund other passions on the side as well. So, and your passion for a career doesn't come until you've actually started working. Like, how can you know you love cybersecurity until you start working? And it also depends on what team you work for, what role you work for, what company and what industry. So I think it's important to talk about money, especially as women, because like we fund families, if we have children, we have to take that into consideration, as well as all the benefits that come with working in a role. So
I love that we've spoken about this actually, because I think like you've both said, it's a topic that a lot of people avoid.
Yeah.
But like you've both said, it's okay for it to be a legitimate reason for you to pursue a career because you know that it will financially support you and other visions that you may have. That's totally legitimate, and that is okay to feel that way.
Yeah. You might not say that directly to the employer, but you've got to dance around it, but in the back of your head. But it's also really important because you could end up being underpaid. So this is a thing, right? You go for a job and you're not aware of the, your salary banding. You could actually undersell yourself anyway. So when you are applying for a cyber role, especially within like financial services, you've got to understand how much they can pay you so that you're not underpaid.
Yeah, I think to add to that, something we put in our first book, which was some advice that our first book, that's so funny.
Oh my gosh,
so strange saying that out loud. And it was some advice I got from a manager who I don't think was a particularly great manager, but this was fantastic advice, was when we were talking about my goals in terms of salary, he said, well, what do you want to do outside of work? Like, do you want to buy a house? Are you settling down? Like, and not out of nosiness, but it was, his argument was, what you're doing at work supports what you do outside of work. Exactly. Your goals should be intrinsically very linked. But anyway, I know we need to move on, Rebecca, so I'll let you answer.
Not a problem.
It's
a good topic, right? And I think it's important we open it up. And as we say at the beginning, I'll drop it in now. If you do have questions about this, you want to talk about it in any more detail, please feel free to send us through an email and we'll share that at the end of this podcast.
Right.
But next question, and we've actually had this sent in by a listener. Very popular. So, we know the skills gap affects many industries, but today we're going to hone in on your views around cyber. So the question is, when people talk about a cyber skills gap, what do you think they're really describing? And do you think it reflects a lack in individuals or in the systems around them? Tricky question.
Yeah, I know. So I'm going to break the answer up in two parts. First of all, talking about the potential cyber skills gap and what that actually looks like from a numerical perspective. And then the second, the systems and how that's maybe propagated the cyber skills gap. So I was reading the Cyber Action Plan and they're saying that 48% of businesses lack core cyber skills. And I believe to have a proper functioning cybersecurity team that is meaningful, you need talent and skill sets that sit within the 5 pillars, which is prevention. So things like firewalls, identity and access management, monitoring and logging systems, SIEM technology, Splunk, and people who know how to implement that as well as manage it and make sense of the data that's on there. An effective instant response team, so runbooks and playbooks, as well as data recovery plans and also compliance. So that's what I see as the basic core cyber skills that almost 50% of businesses are having. And I think that can be attributed to maybe 5 or 10 years ago, cybersecurity was put on a back burner because the priority was usually cloud technologies and just technology in general. So a lot more investment of talent and time was within those areas and not so much cybersecurity. So consequently, it also means there's less investment in hiring cyber talent and upskilling talent within the cyber industry. As of 2023, when AI became commercialized and available to a wide range of people, cyber attacks increased rapidly and the demand for cyber professionals has increased as well. So as a result, what we're seeing is, I think about 2,700 jobs per month in 2024 advertised in cyber, which is great. However, only 63% of those roles want people who have already worked in the industry. So then what happens is you're just exchanging jobs between you and those within your network, which means that talent that is new, right? 6,000 graduates are expected to be graduating from cyber, I think, in 2024. That means that there's only a few jobs available for entry level, and there's more entry level students competing for those few jobs, as well as there's not space for career changers to enter into the industry. So what you're just having is, yes, there's an increase potentially in cyber jobs, but it's just being circulated amongst the people who already exist in the industry and not being fairly distributed to entry level and career changers. Complementary to this, as well as the scale of cyber jobs being in high demand and threats increasing, the range and type of cyber threats that you have has expanded, but also the types of roles have evolved as part of that, right? So the types of roles have evolved as part of that. So for example, in cloud engineering, it was just cloud engineering, but now the cloud engineers need to upskill and learn about cybersecurity. And there can be a delta in that knowledge where, initially the hiring was for the cloud roles, and then now you're having to evolve and to become a cloud security engineer, which can take time. Same for DevOps, DevSecOps, so that contributes to it. But even from a non-technical perspective, you're getting a wide range of unconventional roles that require not just technical knowledge, but business acumen, commercial awareness, and communication skills. So like cybersecurity awareness trainer, cyber marketeer, cyber insurance broker. So not only do we have an increase in demand for the core technical cyber roles, but also we have an increase in demand for these new types of roles that are evolving from this new cyber threat landscape that we're not sure how to navigate, because traditionally the cyber people, you're just expected to code, expected to be a SOC analyst and keep it at bay, but you now need to have knowledge of, what are the business goals, how do you communicate this to stakeholders, how do we have training programs and stuff. And I think collectively all those have contributed to the cyber skills gap.
I think that is a perfect summary, really, of what it is. And I can remember, and what springs to mind when you're talking about that is just sort of post-COVID. There are a lot of central government-run advertisements, sort of, Lola was a ballerina, now she works in cybersecurity.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it's like, well, that's great. And in theory, that's wonderful. But I've seen it, and as someone that runs a consultancy practice, when people come into cybersecurity, be it as a new graduate, be it as a career changer, there is a lot more than technical skills that we have to teach them. Yet there's not a lot of investment for organisations like mine and even much larger organisations into those skills and those practices and teaching them really how to be a cyber professional, not just a subject matter expert. And so I can see the frustration whereby we say there's a skills gap. Well, there's not. There's a lot of willing people, but there is not a lot of support and investment from what I see into giving people those skills. And that can be challenging when you're trying to, run a company. But I also have seen, there's a lot of positive intervention that's going on and a lot of boot camps and upskilling. And so I think it's a really fine balance of, well, who do you blame here? Because it's not the people looking for jobs. It's not companies necessarily. It is an overarching sort of, not societal, but institutional problem, I guess, with the tech sector.
I do want to throw a little bit more of an abstract question at you.
Yeah.
Through mentoring, I speak to lots and lots of individuals, particularly those that are trying to get their foot in the door to a cyber career that don't have the 5 years experience at these entry-level jobs at advertising, and they're finding it really hard. I know that I am in a place of privilege where when I joined the industry 13 years ago, I was able to get a foot in the door with very little and have been able to progress. If you could give just one tip to that individual that's wanting to get a foot in the door, to stand out, to have a shot, what would you say to them?
I would say attend cybersecurity industry events, for a number of different reasons. Number one, it helps you understand what are the challenges that organizations are facing that you can use to change your CV and use the language of the problems that are being faced. Second thing, also use those cybersecurity events to create projects that help combat some of the challenges that organizations are facing. Oh, like we can't make sense of our cybersecurity data or, incident response, whatever. What are the common challenges you're seeing and what potential solution could you provide? Number three, attending those industry events exposes you to sponsors and partners. So traditionally, you might be applying for jobs like on LinkedIn and Reed and Indeed, but there's a lot of jobs that aren't advertised, and a lot of the advertisement of jobs aren't from small companies usually.
Yeah.
So go to those events, make a list of all of the companies that are sponsoring or exhibiting there. Talk to every single one of them, message them on LinkedIn, have a chat and say, hey, I'm an entry-level student. Do you have any entry-level opportunities or shadow opportunities? You'd have at least maybe 20 because there's always like 20 exhibitors. And then the fourth thing, again, an opportunity to network and connect with the speakers and attendees at the event.
I think that is, again, fantastic advice, because the thing that I come across, and I'm sure, Rebecca, you come across it too, is almost people come into the industry and because of maybe some of the advertisement, it's like, well, can you just give me a job? And that's really hard because on a personal level, you want to help people.
Yeah.
And we've made a conscious effort in our organisation to hire people at an entry level. But some of those project pieces are really interesting. And I, having come into the tech sector 7 years ago nearly, I had a very easy time of it, just purely because potentially I was a diversity hire the first time, but, happens to us all. But there wasn't necessarily that competitive nature because cyber hadn't really become what it is now. And I guess that probably leads nicely on to the next question, is we know that there's a skills gap issue when people are coming into the industry. But to what extent does the skills gap come from employers looking externally for talent rather than investing time and potentially training cost into growing their own teams or their own staff, even sort of outside of cybersecurity teams?
Yeah, so I think because a lot of organizations have deployed their applications to the cloud, a lot of them are relying on the cloud providers to sort out their cybersecurity solutions. You pay said cloud provider X amount, and the said cloud provider will say, okay, we can ensure that we can manage your security as part of that. So outsourcing it. The second thing is relying on cybersecurity vendors themselves. So some of these cybersecurity vendors like, oh, hey, we've got a solution. But then the organization's like, we need internal talent. We need to hire the talent. We need to find the talent. And we need to integrate that within our organization. And it's too much of a hassle. So they'll rather pay possibly a premium to ask that cybersecurity vendor to sort out their SOC for them or incident response for them and remove that burden from themselves. So a lot of these cybersecurity vendors are, tapping into the reluctance of organizations wanting to have it in-house. The third thing is, again, just wanting to get ready-made talent. And so unfortunately, because they're getting ready-made talent, it's because they don't want to invest in money in their own talent. And that might be because training your own team or your own talent requires time. So when I was upskilling in a certain area of cyber, I think it was like DevSecOps, I had to take out 3 weeks of my time. And that would mean it would take me away from traditional BAU activity, as when it's just better for them to hire someone who can just get the ground running than to necessarily pay an organization to train me for 3 weeks, which will take time out of me, and then figure out a way of implementing what I've learned in the team successfully. So it's actually the organization being able to find value in the training that they pay for you to go and how you actually implement it and integrate it within your team. The other thing I would say is budget misalignment. So what I find is that training that is impactful outside of certifications tends to be within the team budget. And there's always usually like a limited resourcing for the team budget towards training. So you just get like a certification, and a certification, like, yeah, it helps you understand a breadth of like the work, but it doesn't actually help you understand or contextualize it to your line of work. Whereas again, they might have bigger budgets for the cloud applications that they've paid for, and they just add on top of that to get them to sort out their cybersecurity. So I think outsourcing to third-party vendors is a large thing. Then internal talent requires time out for them to upskill, money from budgets that don't necessarily accommodate the type of training that's needed, and understanding how do you even implement the learnings of the talent that has just upskilled.
You have a real gift with answering these. That was, again, a fantastic response. I think often organisations can forget the merit of training their own.
Yeah.
And I get someone's going to have to step away from their desk, have training leave, potentially pay for exams, all these kinds of things. But that then feeds into the retention of that person.
Yeah.
That feeds into the development of them. You've got someone, no, that hasn't come in pre-built, but you have someone that appreciates your organisational culture already, that's ingrained, that is part of a team, that they just need you to believe in them and give them the shot and the chance to learn that.
Yeah.
On a side note, and it's something, again, I recommend with my own mentees, is as you are doing training, one, you have to advocate for yourself and often build a business case as to why you need it. So don't be afraid to do that. If you see the importance and the vision of you learning something and you want to do it, you need to state your case.
Yeah.
So be prepared to do that. But as you're doing it, documenting it, being able to evidence that you understand it and that you've put it into practice, whether you're a new hire or someone that's been in an organisation for a long time, blogging it or recording videos of you implementing what you've studied goes a long way, again, in justifying to organisations, to the wider community, that you have learnt, and that you have the skill, and that it isn't just a piece of paper that you've acquired.
Yeah, I think to add to that, so I was learning about cloud security. Even though I didn't use it every day in my team, we did engage with the cloud security team. So I was like, okay, I had to kind of justify why it's useful if we're not the cloud security team, but I had to say our stakeholders are cloud security members, and there's often a miscommunication between cyber professionals because of the jargon that's used. So that was how I advocated for it, and I even applied internally for a role within the cloud security team. So even if you don't necessarily use it within your team, could it be leveraged elsewhere in the organisation?
That's a huge point, because I think there is a huge difference between direct training and benefit and indirect. And the example I give on that is certifications, because I see quite often people who have a lot of certifications that perhaps in practice are not fantastic at applying them.
Yeah.
But then I also see people going and doing quite random things or courses. And, Rebecca and I have both done courses and training in the last couple of years that isn't necessarily directly aligned to our jobs, but indirectly that makes us better professionals. And that was why I decided to pursue a master's in law, was because I do a lot of work now in privacy is all law, that there is no tangible impact really for me being able to have a better understanding of property law or tort law, but being able to apply principles to the work I'm doing is really important. And so I really wish that companies were able to take that more holistic view of training, because also what we see in a lot of companies is a development framework that says you must get CISM, then you must get CISP, then you must go and do. And it's like, well, that's fine if you want to create a workforce of talent that all have the same competency. We don't want that. We need diversity of thought, and we need a breadth of information and sort of expertise.
And it's good if you want a technical set of individuals, but there's a lot to be said for doing courses, like we've said, around core skills. So public speaking, dealing with conflict, all these kinds of things, again, can make a beautifully well-rounded team that are equipped to deal with lots of situations, not just technical competencies. Say for an individual, they're career planning, thinking about their personal development. And a leader, your boss, gives you the opportunity to progress or to learn something. Have you got any tips or recommendations for how that person can pick what they do decide to pursue, how they narrow it down?
Oh, that's interesting. I think in your role, there's going to be elements of things that you're interested in your role, but also outside of your role, there might be other elements of things that you're interested in as well. So the way that I've gone about being able to convince leaders to pay for my training.
I love that you say convince.
You have to.
It's
to
a
write.
business
You
case.
have to write like an essay and stuff like that. Anyway, so blagging my way through why this is of importance when it's just for selfish desires. I've just gone on. You know what? I really like this area of cyber. And here's my proposal. And yeah, I think language is really important. So the way that I've done it is like, okay, there's an area of cyber that I like. What in the modules relates somewhat to my job that I can then use as a business case as why it benefits the organization. So I'm really interested in like cybercrime. My role isn't cybercrime, but I'm interested in cybercrime. And I picked an institution that made sense and was able to say, you know, the success records of the people who have done this has enabled them to do X and Y. And number two, the modules that have been taught, picking out modules that can relate to my current role and potentially career progression within the organization. And third thing, you know, how I can give back or feedback, whether that's through giving a talk or, you know, just educating other people in the organization about it. So like with cybercrime, I'm like, well, I work for a financial services institution, you know, my work, even though it's not necessarily cybercrime, I understand that like it's there's some sort of financial impact nonetheless. So I think it's all again soft skills, being able the art of persuasion and business acumen. What value does it bring to the business, and just doing your research really.
What I like about what you said is where you've gone through and you've almost strategically picked courses that fit with your personal ambitions, but also fit with your organisation.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important that you've done it for yourself and you have picked something that will suit the business and fit with what they would like, but also what will fit you.
Yeah.
A lot of, again, people that I speak to in industry have at times felt pressured to take certain courses, like what you said, Amelia. I must get my CISM, I must get my CISP, I must have my Security Plus if I want to hold my space and my platform and be comfortable in that cyber room. But it is so important that when you're picking courses that they do tie into what makes you happy or what you want to learn about, because otherwise you're going to be in a course potentially sitting there even for years if it's things like masters doing something that just doesn't bring you any happiness.
100%.
What is the point?
And I think organizations and leaders need to not just focus on business value, but the sentiment and well-being of their employees. Like, you want to study a course in law? Great. We're going to support you in doing that. And that's what's it called? Talent are now looking for. Part of it isn't just salary as part of the compensation. What training budgets do you provide? Like if I look at a job, some jobs are like, we give you a budget of 10K to spend on training of whatever you like, right? It could sometimes it's even like for driving lessons, right? Some form of education, upskilling. But even for me, that is a determining factor of if I want to apply for an organization. If they have a training budget and they're not too like firm in it has to be one of these lists, because I'm like, that gives me a reason to, you know, stay in the organization to study. Because sometimes in some instances it comes with a caveat where it's like, oh, if we pay for your training, you have to stay with us for 2 to 3 years. If you want to go around it that way, then that could also work.
Yeah, I've been burnt by that, and then you have to pay back the training. But yeah, if I think back particularly on my career, where there have been opportunities that have been most impactful in terms of learning and development, the Empowering You, and I know we wax lyrical about them, course that Rebecca and I met on, has immeasurably changed my life. Off the back of that, I set up Cybaid. Off the back of that, you know, we've set up the brand that we've got, and I would say a lot of the work that I'm doing now and a lot of the conversations I'm having, I'm using skills from what I learned.
Empowered by it.
I've been so empowered. But that's what is interesting, is that was a course that I found out about because the organisation I worked for at the time was sponsoring. But it's free to sign up. But the convincing to an organisation is, please, can I have time off to do this?
Yeah.
And especially in consultancy, where like time is definitely money. That's quite challenging. And when I think about that, that's had more benefit to me than any sort of technical skills have done. And I think when we think about career advancement, we often think about those technical skills. But that doesn't make you a good manager. That doesn't make you a good business owner. That doesn't necessarily make you a good colleague. It's those other sort of softer skills. And something we've started doing that I quite like at Principal Defence is having sort of these lunch and learn sessions. And they could be on anything.
Yeah.
They could be absolutely anything. Like we've done things previously in other organisations on colour theory and are you a red or are you a blue? And that sounds really silly, but actually like it makes a culture of learning that's quite fun.
Exactly.
I'm a red all the way through. Like I couldn't be more type A if I tried.
I believe I am a yellow.
That makes sense. that checks out. But yeah, I think it's so important. So on that note then, I've got a really big question for you.
Might I just add something quickly?
Yeah, of course.
So I did a course last year, a micro-credential at a university, which was in-person instructor-led, as well as the content that I learned, the networks that I was able to form with people. So it might not just be that, oh, I get this outcome and I learned this, but you actually get to meet other people in your industry who might have the same challenges or could be your fellow colleagues and peers. And it's an opportunity to build networks across the industry. Because usually in the training programs, it's not just you are working with others, and that can actually be of value than just like the technical bits you're learning.
Yeah, I mean, we find this with the work that we're doing is we're often calling in favours from people to support on initiatives we're working on, or even like the Cyber Awareness Month content we did. And some of the names we had in there, we couldn't believe. And that was purely from relationships building.
Yeah. It's affirming to be on a course, whatever that might be, surrounded by people that are in similar positions or feel similar ways.
Yeah.
There's something very magic about that network you create off the back of that.
I agree.
For sure. So final question, and it's a big one. If you could redesign how we hire and develop talent as an industry, what would you change to create better opportunities for people who really want to, learn and progress within the sector?
Interesting question. So with regards to talent within an organisation, I would say job swap. So,
Never heard of this. Please tell us more.
Not wife swap, but make it jobs. Where imagine I got to spend a week in finance and finance got to spend a week in my role. Because like in cybersecurity again, right, some of the challenges we're having is that we don't necessarily understand the business. We don't know how to articulate our value within to the business suite. So why not swap and allow us to experience what each of us is going through? The finance team could come into cyber and be like, oh, we get why you're spending so much money. Oh, that's why you've got 50 million cheerers. Oh, okay, that's, you understand, it's to allow for people to understand what the heck are my other counterparts in other departments doing. So job swapping for a week would be great. I'd love to do investment banking for 1 week just to see like the work that I'm doing is to protect these bankers who are making money, and the bankers are going to realize that, oh, sugar, the cyber people are helping protect us so that we can do our job.
It's like a pollination.
Yeah, exactly. Cross-department sharing of knowledge.
Yeah.
The other one I would do is job rotations. So usually it's targeted for graduates, but why not have that for people within your organization where they have 6 months in one department, 6 months in another, 6 months in another. So they get interdepartmental knowledge and cross-pollination of that knowledge across the board. And it allows people to understand what areas of their organization they like more. Yeah. And it helps to retain talent within the organization. So because climbing up the career ladder is all fun and games until you don't find any meaningfulness or satisfaction in it. But it's not everyone's career aspirations, but job rotations for experienced working professionals in the organisation, I think is a great thing. Like 6 months here, 6 months there, 6 months there. Because in each rotation, you're able to bring something from the other rotation. And cross-functional hackathons. So let's say cybersecurity have a hackathon, but they're inviting the finance people to come in because they're in charge of the budget. They're inviting HR in terms of sourcing or whatever other departments there's a cyber challenge that the organisation is currently facing. What other people from the departments can help us in that hackathon, and to get their perspective of how they see it or how they would articulate it to their team in a way that's meaningful and makes sense. With regards to inspiring people to apply in the industry, especially from a wide range of backgrounds, I would say we should start embracing atypical talent and looking at transferable skills like, hey, you're a teacher, you'd be great in the industry because of your XYZ skill set. And this is a role where you could see fit, right? Like the ballerina and cyber, that marketing campaign made no sense because there was no context to how would a ballerina fit within the cybersecurity industry. I'm not sure. I'm not going to lie, but I don't know. But like a teacher, for example, that campaign could be, you're a teacher, communication skills, can work well under pressure, X, Y, Z. You would work well maybe in instant response or cybersecurity awareness training. So highlighting atypical talent, showing their transferable skills and making them realize what area within cyber would make sense. Also say like a discovery platform where all of that is centralized. So you could just be like, I'm a social worker. What could my career progression path look like within cybersecurity so that people have an understanding of how they could grow in the space? Because the problem you get is that when you talk to everyday people about cyber, they're like, I don't want to code. I don't want to hack. I don't want to be a pen tester, because there's not much information in providing them context to how they relate into the industry and where they best fit, as well as days in the life. Like, what on earth does a SOC analyst do? What does a pen tester do? What do you do? What does that look like? Days in the lives that people can come in and shadow you. And then lastly, opportunity. So traineeships and apprenticeships, but not just for school leavers, because traditionally speaking, apprenticeships are like, oh, if you're 16 and you don't want to go to university, just do an apprenticeship, but actually encouraging apprenticeships as part of the culture of learning, whether that's people within the organisation or people who want to come into the industry. And hackathons and workshops as a form of recruitment. So there's an organisation called Atkins Realis. What they did was they, instead of like the traditional recruitment process, they invited the potential talent to come and work together to solve a business problem. And from that, they were able to identify, these are the pots of people that would like to offer a job, rather than the traditional sense of like doing an interview.
That part especially, I think, is so important, because I was speaking to a client the other day who had, when they were recruiting for an apprentice, they had them build a bridge out of like paper, and the condition was the bridge has to be freestanding. It cannot be like taped to the floor or anything like that. And I'm sure my lovely colleague, who is like a chartered mechanical engineer, was having like hyperventilation and palpitations in the corner watching this happen. But something that was really interesting that they said that one of the people said was, at one point they sellotaped it to the floor, and one of the apprentices had said, this is an additional enhanced feature I think it was something like to withstand adverse weather. And what was really funny was, that wasn't part of the brief, but what I found interesting as a person listening to this was, well, that shows to me that you're imaginative and you're creative, and you're also good at managing stakeholders, and you're good at, a lot of consultancy is almost like bluffing and sort of blagging, and so I found that really funny. But I think that's such a good way to see those personalities and see how people work, because you can teach skills, you can teach knowledge, you can't really teach personality. And I did an apprenticeship, and I can remember having a job interview where we had to advertise a pen, right, for a technology thing. And I was absolutely mortified, because I was thinking, what am I doing with my life? Why did I not just go to university like a normal person? But in those activities, they are looking not just for leaders, but they're looking for strategists and people who are, good at, not just good at talking, but good at reasoning and persuasion. And so I think the key thing there, to summarize my ramblings, is that diversity of hiring opportunities needs to be there, because
100%.
I don't think a lot of people perform well in interviews, and I think it's because it's such a rigid structure, and you don't really know what someone's going to be like to work with when you interview them, which is why I think there's, even in the remote world, a bit more emphasis on like spending time with people physically, because you get a better idea of who are you under pressure, who are you when you're working with complex situations.
Yeah, the interview process is not reflective of who that person 100%. Is authentically and in the everyday.
And the thing is, with things like AI, like people can just regurgitate and rehearse answers.
Oh, I've seen a lot of that.
Yeah, and I think that's why I think hackathons and workshops, and not like sell this pen, but an actual you know what I mean?
It was a weird one,
maybe an odd one. Like I've had, like, if you were a fruit, what would you be? But anyway,
I'm going to start asking that on the podcast.
Contextualized hackathons and workshops to hire talent, because I think we need to bring back human first recruitment, because
Yes.
talent is getting missed because they haven't used the latest AI tool to refine their CV and they're being missed by the ATS scanner. It should just be, do you have this qualification? Do you have these A-levels, these GCSEs? Cool, come for a day within our offices and let's work together to solve this business problem.
That's such an amazing call to action. And that is so valid. Human-led hiring.
Yep.
And it levels the playing field. Like you said, you can't bring AI into the conversation.
Yeah.
You can't change the way you look or how you sit or look at a certain. You just have to be yourself and be present in that moment and shine as an individual.
Yeah.
That's so amazing.
Yeah, the thing with ATS is, and I understand why people are using AI, because you're building an AI CV knowing it's going to be looked at by an AI HR platform. And so I don't blame people for doing that.
No.
As a hiring manager, it's glaringly obvious when people do that. And the one that I found more recently is in interviews, you can see the ChatGPT script that they're almost coming, because you know how it structures things in an ever increasing digital world, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think people forget that when they get to a point of talking in an interview, they are talking to another human being. And so that element of needing to have polished answers isn't that. I like it when people don't know an answer and they say, do you know, actually, I don't know that, or what do you think? And I think that comes across a lot better. And I wish people knew that. We're not looking for perfection. We're not looking for these polished answers all the time. We just want people who, overarchingly, when I'm hiring someone, I just want to know that they're going to be nice to work with, and we can teach them specific subject matter expertise.
Yeah, and I think you need to find unconventional ways of finding that talent.
Yeah.
So partnering with career support groups, going to universities, going to schools, because again, I think the recruitment process is discriminatory. If I think about my mum doesn't know she's not going to be hired just because she doesn't know how to use AI and how to pass the ATS scanner, but she's the best at what she does in her job.
Yeah.
So hiring managers actually need to find alternative in-person ways of connecting with the people that they want to hire than just trusting people to apply through a CV.
Leaders need to question that process, I guess.
100%.
Amazing. So lots of fabulous questions and even better answers today. We are proud of you. That was amazing.
So we'd like to put a question over to our listeners to think about and to mull over and take away with you. Do you think there is a skills gap in your industry? We are very conscious that a lot of our listeners are not in cyber, but has this sparked any thoughts or musings for you? And what are you going to do about it is probably what I'd like to know. So to end, if you have any questions relating to any of the topics covered in this podcast, pop them over to cyberagonyarts@gmail.com and we'll do our best to reply there, or maybe even cover it in a future podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. You've been amazing.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, please share it with others or post about it on social media using the hashtag cyberagonyaunt.
As always, a huge thank you to our guests, to Matinee Multilingual, and to you, our listeners. Keep smiling, keep shining, and we'll see you next time on the Cyber Agony Aunts podcast.